Hello everyone, welcome to tonight's lecture on assessment, referral, and pre-referral. So let's just do a little bit of review. If you were to fill in the blank here, what would you put? Monitoring student progress and making decisions based on that data. So list two characteristics of RTI. These are some of the things you could have been thinking. Scientifically based instruction, school-wide screening, student progress monitoring, fidelity measures, database decision making, those systematic instructions, any of those ideas are characteristics of RTI. So if you were to illustrate the three-tier model of RTI, how would you do that? With the 80% of students in the primary prevention, 15% of the students in the secondary, and then you have that 5% at the top. So based on the RTI's three-tier model, when do we provide Tier 3 interventions? That's right. When Tier 2 interventions were found ineffective in improving the student's performance level and rate after 5 to 8 weeks. So if we look at this data, what should be done as the next step using the RTI model? That's right. The child is making adequate progress in Tier 2 after 5 to 8 weeks of progress monitoring, and your database decision would be that you return the child to Tier 1. And the last review question, which of the following is correct? A, its main purpose is to enter students into special ed. It's an integral general special education system. It involves high-quality scientific-based instructions and interventions, or its central focus is on disability determination. And you should pick B or C. They're both correct answers. So what we're going to talk about is we're going to define a referral. We're going to list 3 questions to be concerned with when determining the referral, identify information required, talk about parent involvement, and then look at the difference in a pre-referral and a referral. A referral is the initial point of determining a child's need for special education. It does not guarantee special education placement. Just because a student is referred to special ed does not mean that they will automatically be determined as eligible. So if we look at the definition of a referral, it's a formal request for a full evaluation of a student with the intent to consider the need for special education. So once the pre-referral team has decided that those interventions in RTI are not successful in achieving the success of the students, that is when the referral is officially made. So the definition of a referral is it's initiated by almost anyone, including the student, but it's typically done by the gen ed teacher or a parent. This should state the reason for the referral. The referral process seeks additional assistance from school personnel. It's on the basis of observation and classroom performance. The teacher or others request this evaluation of the student. These are some common circumstances that would warrant a referral: significant academic difficulties, abnormal behavior, communication difficulties, and physical concerns. First, does the child have a suspected disability that may affect his educational performance? A child should not be referred to special education unless there is a reason to suspect that he or she has a disability. You must indicate the suspected problems on that form, and you have to consider the state eligibility criteria and rule out that there is a cause other than the disability. The second question is there any educational concern about the child that is suspected to be caused by the disability? You cannot be referred to special education unless the adult has a significant educational concern and there is evidence that the pre-referral interventions have failed, that progress monitoring and database decision-making that occurred through the RTI process. And the concern is significant when you can do a comparison to other students. And the third question to ask yourself when you are determining the needs for a referral is the child suspect to be in need of specially designed instruction that's different from what's appropriate as part of the regular program? If the child's needs can be met and accommodated within that regular education program, the child should not be referred. Any needed accommodation is special or not just for any other student. The focus is on specially designed instruction, not on special placement. Very important. The referral process is usually initiated by the submission of a state-mandated form or format, and it includes a meeting with the school's special education assessment team. Who would you think may be included in that assessment team? A checklist that the general education referral process should use would be that there's a formal request, there's timelines that decisions have to be made, strategies for interventions, contact and involvement of parents, and the collection and gathering of student information and data. Each referral must include the following about the student: a clear statement for the referral, identification of the specific area, and then a clear statement of the student's strengths and areas of concern. Any referral request is not automatically accepted into special education. Reasons for denial could be weak rationale, insufficient evidence, insufficient time. Insufficient time allowed for monitoring of an intervention is common when teachers don't spend enough time using the RTI model. Special education acceptance of referral answer these questions. This is an example of the required paperwork required during the referral process for autism and emotional disability. I wanted you to see the different forms that are used within the referral stages so that you can see in the IEP process, depending on the disability, the paperwork can be different. The referral stage begins and you must have consent to evaluate. The initial referral of a student for special education, the parents must be notified of the school concern and give that written permission to evaluate. Notification of parental rights. If you look at page 47 in your textbook, there is a table that has the parent rights and procedural safeguards. It's important that you understand that all of that is in the handbook on parental rights. Personal contact with the parents. This is the notification from the school. Don't send an email. You want to make sure that you actually contact the parents and have a conversation about this process and discuss what type of evaluation data will be needed and the people that will be responsible for that. Parental involvement is required by the law. You must send them an invitation. They must consent for the evaluations that you're going to perform, and you must give them a handbook of their rights. You want to meet with the parents prior to the referral process. A face-to-face meeting involving the gen ed teacher, a special ed teacher, and the parents. It's encouraged to do this before you move on in the process, just so that the parents know the intervention strategies that were tried and what your areas of concern are. Remember how important I said documentation was. There are a list of documentations that you need to keep up with during the referral process, making sure that you have adequate paperwork to talk about and show justification during that process. To be clear, the parent has to consent for evaluation. Any test that we administer to a child to determine eligibility for special education, the parent must consent. It must be understandable to the parent. Do not use the jargon and special education terminology, and it must be in their native language or mode of communication. So when I say you need parents' consent, what does that mean? That means the parent is fully informed and they understand what is happening with the process and they agree in writing to the implementation of the activities that you will do with their child. Remember that the parent must receive their handbook. Parents should receive a document on their rights explaining all of the procedures. Parents must have their rights and procedural safeguards given to them. It is the parent's decision to agree, and once the parent agrees, you have their consent and you give them a handbook. You establish timelines and responsibilities for what will occur. Or a parent can disagree. The option one would be for you to appeal the parent's denial, or you close the case and note that the child doesn't want to be tested. Now, if you decide that you want to appeal a parent's decision, that is not your decision as the school. There is a team that makes these decisions, not you. However, the responsibility of the school is to inform the parents of their right. Educate the parents in understanding that a referral to special education is not a placement. It is to determine whether the child does or does not have a disability. And be aware that receiving the referral starts that 90-day timeline for placement. From reading in Chapter 2, you should understand what a referral is. From the PowerPoint tonight, you should know what the 3 questions are to be considered when determining the need for a referral, the information needed, how parents should be involved, and then what the differences are between a pre-referral and a referral. The second half of this lecture will be on determining eligibility criteria. But first, let's review 4 quick review questions. What are the purposes, for what purpose are standardized norm reference measures used during the evaluation stage? Identification and classification. So if these are the test results for Lucy, she scored an 81 on an achievement test, which is in the 10th percentile. How could you interpret those results? A norm reference test with those scores means that Lucy scored as well as or better than 10% of the group in her norm group. So write down 3 potential multidisciplinary evaluation team members. Those members are listed on page 49 and 50 of your textbook and can include any of the ones listed on your screen. For educational program planning purposes, what type of measure is the most appropriate to be used during evaluation? Criterion-based measurement. Good job. So we're looking at the pre-referral intervention, the referral intervention, and then that non-discriminatory multi-factored evaluation. Now we're at a place where we're going to make decisions based on the identification. We're going to talk about the purposes of eligibility determination, discuss the steps for determining eligibility, talk about the potential members to be included, and then steps needed after the determination. The purpose of eligibility determination is to provide students identified as having a disability with additional help, is to provide assistance to gen ed teachers, and to justify the existence or the need for special education programming. Remember when discussing the needs for a referral, what are the 3 questions that we ask to make that decision? First, has a suspected disability that affects his or her educational performance? What educational concern about the child is caused by that disability? And then, do they need specially designed instruction? And then remembering the general federal criteria is that they must have a diagnosed disability, it has an adverse effect on their educational performance, and they require specially designed instruction to meet those needs. We'll talk more in detail about this flow chart, but I wanted you to at least have seen it. It's important that you realize that any of you can be part of that eligibility determination team. It must be a group of individuals that are knowledgeable about the student. They each bring some different meaningful data, and then they're going to make a placement option. Each person makes sure that what they are talking about and being presented and interpreted is accurate, and you make a decision based on that data. And someone at the meeting should make sure all members are included and responsibilities are carried out. Here are some examples of members that would be at this team meeting and responsibilities for each person. It's important that each member participate in this meeting. Other responsibilities could be that you are contributing information for defining the adverse effect and establishing the need for specially designed instruction. Or you could be a part of the placement options. Where is the need for that specially designed instruction? It's very important that a variety of sources are used for determining eligibility. Information on student characteristics, be able to list examples of those. Information from classroom settings, be able to list examples of those, as well as information on educational history. Information on teachers' instructional styles, as well as performance compared with other students. How would you collect those pieces of data? The decision must be clearly documented. If a disability is confirmed and named in order to be eligible for placement in special education programs. We are specifically talking about learning disabilities in this course, but I have listed other disability categories just so you're aware of those terminologies. The responsibility of that determination team is to clearly document their decision. There must be an adverse effect on the educational performance. You cannot simply say they are failing science. Instead, documenting that there's a limited vocabulary and comprehension skills that affect the student's ability to read and understand text would be a very good example of documenting the adverse effect. Not only is it documented that the student has a disability or that it adversely affects their educational performance, but also that they need special education. It is impossible to determine the needs without knowing what the instructional needs are. So how do those differ from other students will have to be clearly documented in this. So it's important to realize that during this stage of eligibility, the team members are not saying where the child will be taught. Where meaning an inclusion, a resource, classroom, etc. Not the placement of the student, just that the student requires something extra, some type of instruction that is not normally expected to other students as part of the regular program. So the procedures are the team meets, reviews all of the results from the evaluation, consider all the information, they look at the federal and state guidelines, and then all of that data are explained and interpreted so that the parents understand. Based on the information and comprehensive data that you have, you should be able to answer the questions. Do these results reflect the performance, behavior, and socialization knowledge and skills of a person with a particular disability? Is there consensus among the team, and is there sufficient data to make these decisions? So right after determining eligibility, you will provide parents with copies of everything that you've discussed. You will provide notification to all members of the IEP team, and then you begin to develop the IEP. So this would begin the stage of the IEP. Writing the IEP is after the multidisciplinary evaluation has been conducted, the information is gathered, and parents are contacted for now what is the IEP meeting. And at that meeting is when the IEP is written. It is important to remember that from acceptance of the referral all the way through IEP development and placement, all of that has to occur in 90 days.